Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So let's talk about all the books that my son read for his 6th grade year. This does not show all the books. It does not include his manga. It does not include his anime. It does not include his little comic books. And it doesn't include some of the shorter reads that he just decided to read throughout the school year before coronavirus when we usually made our trips to the library. So I don't have any of those books. Our goal every year, or at least for the 6th grade year, I have a goal every year for him to read a specific number of books. But for the 6th grade year, the goal was 20 books, and we definitely surpassed that number. However, he had about 12 books, I think 12 to 14 books for his required reading. Our required reading are basically books that he doesn't have a choice on. Books I need for him to read because it corresponds with what we're doing in literature. I like to have him read historical fiction or other pieces of literature that take place in the era in which we're studying our history. And we didn't get through all of those. I want to say we maybe have gotten through 5 of the, I think it was 13 or 14 books, but that's because he found some books, specifically these books here, and I'll, show that to you. But he found some books that he really fell in love with and decided he wanted to read the entire series. So I said, hey, I'm not going to bombard you. We're still going to learn the information related to history, but you may not have the additional or the other component to help drive what was taking place or those events. However, we have the summer. We homeschool year round. So our school year is from July through the end of May, first week of June, every school year. So he has an opportunity to still read those books. We will just weave it into his 7th grade year. And let's go ahead and take a look at all the books. He gave this book a 4.5. He gave this book a 4. He gave this book a 4. He gave this book a 4. He gave this book a 4.5. He loves these books. He loves these interactive history adventure books from YouChoose. There are various story paths. You get various choices, and depending on what decision or choice you make depends on the alternate ending that you actually get. So of course he gave all these a 5. These numbers at the bottom here, these numbers represent the order in which I had him read the books, which align to where we were in our history. But if you look at that video, I already put a card up. If you look at that video, it'll tell you how I organized it, and I'll also link a video that talks about our scoping sequence. He rated this a 4. He gave this series a 5. All 3 books. This is also in that series. And this is the last one, I think, that was in that series. These 3 books were not required reading. It was just books that he found to be very interesting. After he read the first one, he was like, oh, I want to read all of them in the series. So I went ahead and got that for him. He gave this book a 5. This book was a part of our Bible study. He gave this book a 4.5. He gave this book a 4.5. And this year, he told me he realizes that he really enjoys historical fiction. So again, that just helps bring our history to life. This book here, he gave it a 5. This is book 1 in the series. And we've already got the other series. He's ready to read those. he gave this book a 4.5. He really enjoyed this one. This Imagine book was also a part of our biblical studies. As we discussed the Great Flood, he read that. And the other one that I showed you, as we talked about the fall of Jericho and all the events, he read this book. So the book doesn't talk about those specific events that took place in the Bible. However, the book has its own twist, which aligns to the events. So it was really cool. And I think I told you he gave those a 5. He read this book. So I give him about a week to about 3 weeks to read a book. For example, this book here, it took him about 3 weeks to read. These little books here take him about a week and a half. A skinny little book like this would take him about a week and a half. And these Who Was books takes him about a few days. And the books where I told you it has the, you get to choose your choices and endings and story paths, he can read this in like 2 days because he is so into it. This book here, he gave it a 4. And he wanted me to mention that he read all of the Diary of the Wimpy Kids. So every single Diary of the Wimpy Kids, he read them. And this, I don't know why, but these Diary of Wimpy Kids, he read the whole thing in 5th grade and it was like, oh, I love it. I want to read it again. So he read all the books that we had throughout the 6th grade on his free time, his leisure time. So all the books that we did not get to in terms of our historical fiction and our Who Was books, which relate to whatever we were talking about in history, we're going to touch on some of those again in the beginning of his 7th grade year and throughout the summer. Hey guys, you may plan, but be flexible because plans may change. Life happens. Students become disinterested and they find themselves to be interested in other areas. Don't stifle their learning. Allow them to veer off, go down those rabbit trails. And as long as they're reading some good literature, hey, you're okay. You can always bring it back in at a later time, or you can have them still learn the same information through a conversation, through a video, through a documentary, through a movie, or you can read it aloud to them. All right, guys, that's it. And as always, be blessed and make it a great, great day. Bye.